Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something, well, really fundamental across physics mechanics, light, quantum theory, you name it. It's the wave equation.
That's right. We're using a classic text to guide us, focusing on how disturbances, like sound, actually travel through a medium. It's all about propagation.
And our mission really is to get past just seeing the equation. We want you, the listener, to grasp the logic behind it. How does it emerge from basic physics?
Exactly. It's not magic. It comes directly from things like conservation of mass and Newton's laws. We want to show you how those pieces connect to prove that waves have this characteristic speed. Sound is just our perfect sort of tangible example here.
Okay, so by the end of this, you should have a solid feel for why things like air particle acceleration are linked to, say, how stretched or squeezed the air is. Let's start with the basics of wave motion then.
First things first, let's separate two ideas. You've got oscillation, that's just something moving back and forth or up and down in one spot over time. Think of maybe a single point on a guitar string vibrating.
Okay, just local movement?
Right. Then you have propagation. That's when the pattern of oscillation travels through space. The shape of the disturbance moves. That moving pattern is the wave.
Got it. And when these waves travel, they interact, don't they? The text mentions a couple of key ways.
Yes, two important ones, both based on what we call the principle of superposition. First, there's interference in time. You probably know this as beats.
Ah, right. Like when you tune an instrument, two notes are almost the same frequency.
Precisely. They go in and out of sync, so the sound gets louder and softer, louder and softer. That's interference happening over time because the peaks don't always line up.
That rhythmic throbbing. Okay, what's the second type?
The second is interference in space. This happens when waves are bouncing around, maybe reflecting off walls in a room.
So the wave meets itself coming back.
Exactly. And they combine. This can create really complex patterns, the most famous being standing waves. These are stationary patterns, fixed points of high and low amplitude. Super important for acoustics, musical instruments, all sorts of things.
Okay, and we also talk about different types of mechanical waves. Sound in air is...
Sound in a gas-like air is a longitudinal wave. This means the little parcels of air move back and forth parallel to the direction the sound wave is traveling. It's a sequence of compressions where air is squeezed and rarefactions where it's stretched out.
Slinky toy analogy, basically. Pushing one end.
That's a good visual, yeah? Contrast that with a transverse wave. Think of ripples on a pond or shaking a rope up and down. The movement, the displacement, is perpendicular to the direction the wave travels.
Up and down motion, but the wave goes sideways.
Correct. Now, mathematically, the source points out something really elegant. Any wave, longitudinal or transverse, that keeps its shape as it travels can be described as some function, let's call it f, that depends only on the combination x minus ct.
Where x is position, t is time, and c is the speed.
Exactly. fx(xt) just means take whatever shape the function f has and shift it along the x-axis by an amount ct. It's literally a pattern moving rightward at speed c. If it were 5x plus ct, it'd be moving leftward.
Simple, yet powerful. Which brings us back to that superposition idea.
Yes, the principle of superposition. It's absolutely fundamental. It says if you have one wave pattern, say 5xat, that works as a solution to the physics, and another pattern, maybe gx plus ct, that also works.
Then just adding them together, 5xat plus gsct, is also a valid solution.
That's the key. It's why different sounds can coexist in the same space without destroying each other. Your voice and my voice pass right through each other. Their effects add up where they overlap, but they continue on unchanged. This linearity is what makes the world sound the way it does.
Okay, general picture established. Now, let's drill down into sound in a gas. What's the actual physical mechanism? What's really happening to the air?
Right. So sound starts with some mechanical disturbance of vibrating speaker cone, your vocal cords, whatever. This disturbance pushes on the air right next to it, momentarily compressing it.
Increasing its density and pressure locally.
Exactly. Now, this little region of higher pressure pushes outwards onto the air next to it, causing that air to compress, and that region pushes the next, and so on. The compression, the disturbance, propagates outwards.
But the air molecules themselves aren't flying across the room, are they?
No, not at all. That's crucial. Each little bit of air just moves back and forth a tiny amount around its average position. It bumps into its neighbors, transfers the momentum, and then maybe moves back. It's the disturbance that travels, not the air itself over long distances.
Okay, so to describe this mathematically, what do we need to track? The source mentions three key things.
Yes, three variables, and importantly, we're usually interested in the small changes or deviations from the normal quiet state of the air. So first, there's the displacement, often called $6, which is how far a tiny parcel of air has moved from its equilibrium spot.
How far it's nudged.
Second, the excess pressure, let's call it P dollars. That's the difference between the actual instantaneous pressure and the normal atmospheric pressure, P dollar.
So P dollars is P dollar, P dollars.
Right. And third, the excess density, maybe shores. Same idea. The difference between the actual density toward and the normal equilibrium density toward. These three things, displacement, excess pressure, excess density, all depend on both position and time.
And the goal of the derivation in the text is to link these three. Somehow get one equation that governs the whole process.
That's exactly it. We use three fundamental physical relationships to connect them and ultimately eliminate the pressure and density bits to get an equation just for the displacement.
Okay, let's walk through those relationships. What's the first one?
The first is conservation of mass. Think about a tiny thin slab of air, initially maybe of width delta x dor. When the sound waves passes, the front face of the slab might move a distance 6 dubs, and the back face moves a distance 6 plus delta x dor.
So the width of the slab changes. It can get stretched or squeezed.
Right. If the displacement 6 dal increases as you move along, 6 em meaning the back face moves more than the front face, the slab gets stretched. If it decreases, the slab gets compressed.
And if it stretches, the density inside must go down, assuming the mass inside is constant. If it compresses, density goes up.
Precisely. The change in density, P per turns out to be directly proportional to how much the displacement changes with position. Specifically, it's related to the negative of the spatial derivative, partial x verb. That links density change to displacement change.
Okay, step one. Mass conservation links density to the slope of the displacement. What's step two?
Step two is Newton's second law. Force equals mass times acceleration. 5 in a We need to find the net force on our little slab of air.
Where does the force come from? Pressure.
Yes, the pressure difference between the two faces. If the pressure on the left face is slightly higher than the pressure on the right face, there's a net force pushing the slab to the right. This net force is proportional to how steeply the excess pressure P tall A changes across the slab. It's related to the negative pressure gradient, partial P partial in Gasquet.
Okay, so force depends on the pressure gradient. And Newton's law says this force must equal the mass of the slab, which is density, or rho times its volume, multiplied by its acceleration.
And acceleration is just the second time derivative of the displacement, partial 2x partial t2. So now we have a link. The pressure gradient causes acceleration. Partial P partial x dor is proportional to partial 2x partial t22.
Got it. Mass conservation linked density and displacement. Newton's law linked pressure and acceleration, which is based on displacement. We need one more link.
The third piece is the pressure-density relationship for the gas itself. How does the pressure change when you change the density? For the small, rapid changes in a sound wave, it's essentially direct proportionality. The excess pressure gap is proportional to the excess density partial.
Propto, and the constant of proportionality, let's call it kappa, sort of measures the stiffness or elasticity of the gas, right? How much pressure you need to cause a certain density change.
Exactly. Kappa is defined as the rate of change of pressure with density, evaluated at the equilibrium state, dpdxers. Now we have all three pieces.
So how do we put them together?
We play a little substitution game. We use the pressure-density link to replace Pater and Newton's law, and we use the mass conservation relation partial x to replace Pater and Ball.
So you substitute density out using displacement, then substitute pressure out using density, which ultimately means you substitute pressure out using displacement too.
You got it. When the dust settles, both Peeble and Parters are gone, and you're left with a single equation relating the displacement sex by 2 dal. And that is the famous one-dimensional wave equation for sound.
That's the one. And look what it says. The second time derivative of displacement, acceleration, is proportional to the second spatial derivative of displacement.
What does that second spatial derivative represent physically? Like the curvature. Exactly. Partial 2x partial by 2 measures how bent the displacement pattern is in space. Where the displacement curve is most bent, like at the peak of a compression or the trough of a rarefaction, the acceleration is the greatest. It tells you how the shape of the wave in space drives its change in time.
That's actually quite intuitive when you put it that way. The sharper the bend, the bigger the push or pull.
Right. And that constant factor, kappa per dollar, connects them. Notice its units. Kappa is pressure density, the Hucker dollar is the density. So kappa Hud has units of pressure density 2, which, if you work it out, is velocity 2.
So we define that constant as 2 deco. 2 there goes copper. We do.
We do. And the equation becomes partial 2x partial t2 equals c2 partial 2x partial by 2. This mathematical structure demands that any solution representing a traveling disturbance must move at this specific speed.
And that the fact that the equation is linear and no terms like 6 by 2 or partial x, partial t2, t2, that's important too, right?
Absolutely critical. Because it's linear, if you have two different solutions, say $700 and 72, their sum, sex by dollar plus by 32, is also a solution. This mathematically proves the principle of superposition we started with. It falls right out of the equation.
Okay, so the equation itself tells us sound travels at a constant speed of dollars, where 72 is the stiffness to density ratio, kappa ho dollars. Now, how do we actually calculate that speed? There was some historical nuance here.
Yes, a very important bit of physics history.
Yeah.
Kappa is dPdD shu. The question is, how does pressure change with density in a quick sound compression? Newton made the first serious attempt. He assumed the process was isothermal, meaning the temperature stays constant. He figured the compressions and expansions happen slowly enough for heat to flow and keep everything at the same temperature.
Seems reasonable, but it didn't work.
It gave a value for the speed of sound in air that was consistently too low, about 15–20% off from measured values.
Yeah.
Something was missing.
So who fixed it?
It was Laplace who corrected it. He realized that sound waves oscillate very quickly. There's simply no time for heat to flow in and out of the compressed or expanded regions. The process isn't isothermal, it's adiabatic, meaning no heat exchange occurs.
Ah, so the temperature does fluctuate slightly within the sound wave. Compressions get momentarily hotter, rarefactions momentarily cooler.
Exactly. And when you calculate dPd dollars under adiabatic conditions instead of isothermal, you get an extra factor involved, usually called gamma, the ratio of specific heats for the gas, CPCV.
So the corrected stiffness is actually gamma P0 Galler under adiabatic conditions.
Well, using the ideal gas law, the adiabatic relationship leads to $2 gamma P0 Galler. That factor of gamma, which is about 1.4 for air, fixed Newton's calculation and matched the experimental speed perfectly.
That's a fantastic piece of physics detective work. Just changing the thermal assumption makes all the difference.
It really does. And you can take it a step further. Using the ideal gas law, P$S, Kudiki nu, where K Boltzmann's constant, T is absolute temperature, and Hole and Candelou is the average molecular mass, you can substitute for T Pu.
What do you get then?
You find $2 and others. Look at that speed of sound squared is proportional to the absolute temperature. It doesn't depend on the overall pressure or density, just the temperature and the type of gas through gamma and mu's.
Which matches what we observe.
Yeah.
And connecting this back to the molecules themselves.
The final insight is beautiful. If you calculate the typical speed of the air molecules themselves due to their random thermal motion, the root mean square speed, you find it's related to Skordon P mu. The speed of sound, Skordon team, is very similar, just multiplied by Skordon.
So the speed of sound is directly related to, but a bit different from, the average speed of the molecules carrying it.
Exactly. It confirms that sound is fundamentally carried by the motion and collisions of the gas molecules. The disturbance propagates at a speed determined by how fast those molecules are buzzing around and how they transfer momentum during collisions.
Wow. Okay, let's recap quickly. We started with the general idea of waves and superposition. Then we focused on sound in a gas, identifying displacement, excess pressure, and excess density as key variables.
Then we use three core principles: mass conservation, Newton's alpha, and the pressure-density relation, the gas's elasticity, to combine everything.
Eliminating pressure and density led us straight to the wave equation. Acceleration proportional to spatial curvature.
Partial 2x partial T2 equals C2,
Right.
partial 2x partial by 2. The constant E22 involves the gas properties.
And finally, we figured out that calculating an Euler's correctly required Laplace's insight about the process being adiabatic, not isothermal, bringing in the factor gamma and linking the speed of sound directly to temperature and molecular speeds.
A complete journey from basic principles to a quantitative understanding of sound speed.
Fantastic. Now, for a final thought to leave you with, we derived this elegant wave equation for sound for air molecules bumping into each other, but think about this. The very same mathematical form, partial T2 text something, partial T2 text constant T2, partial by 2, also describes how light waves propagate through empty space.
Indeed. In that case, the something isn't particle displacement, but the electric and magnetic fields, and the constant T22 isn't gamma P0 rule, but $1 epsilon group involving fundamental constants of electromagnetism. But the underlying mathematical structure, the relationship between time change and spatial change, is identical.
It really makes you wonder about the fundamental unity in the way physics describes propagation across vastly different phenomena, doesn't it?
It certainly does. Are we just finding different physical manifestations of the same core mathematical truths? Something to ponder.
Definitely food for thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the wave equation and the physics of sound. Keep looking for those connections, and we'll see you next time.